Thank you so much for being here today with us. I am so glad to be in conversation with Amanda Kane, the team photographer for the San Jose Sharks and the NHL's first female Black photographer. I can't believe that that is a reality in 2022, and we will go into all that has shaped her career and her opportunity that she has just this past 6 months, building upon the creative legacy that the San Jose Sharks team and their creative marketing team has set thus far. And we're going to be discussing how she's taken it further, how her specific unique background in professional photography as a amateur photographer in the beginning kind of evolved slowly and surely over the past 15 years to land her in this really unique position as the NHL's first female Black photographer. If you are tuning in today, you know that PhotoShelter is located in New York. And while we are going through this panel discussion, session discussion with Amanda, we are going to be using Slack to actually connect. So while we are going through her beautiful photographs and hearing about her story, her career journey, we're going to be using Slack to communicate. So if you're familiar with the platform, or even if you're not, either take your phone out, scan this QR code, or go to bit.ly/PSB Slack and join the live chat group to see some additional links, some exclusive content that we'll be sharing throughout the conversation today, and to just ask some questions that Amanda will ask at the Q&A portion of this session at the end. We'll be answering any and all of your burning questions, anything you have about her background, anything you have about being a woman in photography, and being a photographer in general. We'd love to hear from you. So please use the live chat channel to chat with us and take part in this really riveting discussion today, this important and necessary discussion today. Taylor, I see you're in Grand Haven, Michigan. I see Carl Jones, who's another brand photographer. We've got somebody else in Detroit, Michigan. Hey, Jeff. I know Jeremy, my colleague, is over on the other side of the office, and a few other colleagues are scattered around the United States and Mexico. So I'd love to hear where you all are from. Oh, Carl Jones is in Detroit too. So as we progress with this discussion, the woman of the hour will make her way to this stage. But really, what we are talking about today is why and how we are at this juncture point where the NHL, one of the largest sports leagues, is having their first team photographer who's a Black woman just in 2022. I mean, that's kind of crazy, but this gift says it all. Hockey is for everyone, from the team that creates the fan buzz and the audience and builds up all of the communications to the outside world, the creative marketing team and the photographers, the creative directors, everyone that's involved with creating the aesthetic, the brand that is the team, needs to be diverse, as well as the talent that's on the ice, as well as the owners and the stakeholders who run these teams. So we're going to be talking to Amanda today, and I can't wait to hear a little bit more about you. I know that we've been chatting over the past couple of weeks, so I'm really excited for anyone who's interested in photography and sports photography, and also just getting serious in their career, to hear about your challenges, very real challenges that you and I have both experienced, being Black women in media and creative media and creative marketing. But I guess where is a good place to start? Let's hear about how you decided on photography as your artistic medium when you were first starting. And welcome, Amanda.
Thank you, Larissa. I appreciate it. Hello, all. My name is Amanda J Kane. I am the current Sharks photographer and the first female team photographer in the NHL. And I just want to thank you all for just showing up. I appreciate the love. especially from Twitter. I received a couple cards in the mail from my alum, CMU University or Central Michigan University, and I appreciate that. They mean a lot. How did I start off in photography? Well, I would have to say, I was a graphic design major at Central Michigan, Detroit raised, lived the first 23 years of my life in Michigan. And it started when, at first, to be honest, parents always say, oh, you got to figure out a career path. You got to know what you want to do. And in college, I didn't. I wandered from sports studies to education to graphic design because the art form was something that I always enjoyed. Even as a high schooler, a grade schooler, I always loved 2D design. And so graphic design was probably the closest to it, probably the closest thing that I could, make money at and be successful at the time. And so that led me to take photography classes. So while I am, kind of self-trained, I did learn some film skills, some compositing skills in school. So that has led through my career, like pushed me in certain directions. And so my first job was in New Bedford, Massachusetts, where I was a graphic artist for a newspaper. And at the time, I was interested in getting to know more people. And one of the people that I met was Peter Pereira, the photojournalist at the Standard Times. And it was there I just started to dive into photography. It was like, okay, this is a lot, more of what I want to do. I didn't know you can make money out of it,
Right,
or else I would have done it in college.
right,
But, I think at some points in your life, you have to realize that, you meet certain people along the way that guide you into a certain direction. And so it was there that Peter kind of guided me into this photojournalism realm of things, even though I was more fine art.
mm,
I like to see the beauty of things. Every photo that I took was a blank canvas, and then I processed and edited from there.
mm,
And so that's where, it kind of started for me. So these images on the screen that you're seeing right now, some of them are from traveling to Thailand, which I got to do after I was let go from the first job. I just continued to just shoot whatever I could, friends of friends. That was kind of everyone that I met. That was like, hey, kind of building a portfolio. How can I, do you know anybody that's in the sports? Do you know anybody that's modeling? Do you know anybody that needs photos? It wasn't
mm.
necessarily paid right away, but it was just building up my craft at the time. So
So just really being out there looking for assignments essentially, and maybe not even choosing a specific industry or area to shoot, but trying to capture it all and figure out what you really liked or what you were attracted to.
yeah, I would definitely say absolutely.
Mm,
At the time, I was attracted to street photography. At the time, I was trying to look for the interesting faces.
mm,
There's something unique about telling a story of a person that just has that look, that particular look that you're just like, what makes you so interesting?
mm,
And so it was very raw. It's very impactful. As I kind of progressed. And so when I progressed, I decided that New Bedford, Massachusetts was not necessarily, the spot that was going to kind of push me along to where I thought I wanted to be.
mm,
Because, every stage in life, you think you want to be at a certain stage. But then once you go to that certain stage, you realize, oh, wait, really? Is this what this is really all about? Maybe not, but you know what I mean. That's life. It kind of goes with the ebbs and flows. And so that's kind of what I've done. Throughout my journey is just kind of go with the flow, even though at times it's frustrating because you want to make money, you want to be successful. But these are just some of the images that were taken really 2011 to 2012 that kind of got me started um, in that direction.
right. This looks like a New York City subway. I would be remiss if I didn't ask that.
It is. So I went to New York City, I think, as a teenager with family, and it was great then. But as an adult, to travel to New York City by yourself is even better. I had friends at the time that lived in the city, and it was just a way to just go and see action,
Yes.
see the characters of the street that I could photograph because I thought I needed to be in the big city, to kind of get my career started. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love this photo.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. And so now, so when you started to develop and build these kind of relationships around the places that you were living in or moving to, what like talk to me a little bit about how you started to find sports photography as an avenue to, like you said, build on that passion and make money, but also build community, find mentors, and kind of bring in lighting, all you've learned about lighting and portraiture, and kind of bring it to sports photography.
Well, I mean, as a child, I grew up loving sports. I grew up playing sports, and I think as a child, you're like, yeah, I want to play professional sports or I want to play collegiate sports. And once that doesn't happen, you're just kind of like, okay, yeah, I'm a fan. I'm still going to watch the game. So, like, when I was at these events, in particular, a Red Wings game or a Detroit Pistons game, like, I never thought about the people who brought the game to life, the behind the scenes, the producers, the videographers, the photographers. And so now, I guess, stepping into that light and the frame of reference of the photo that's on the screen, everything that I was seeing, I kind of wanted to be at the time, or kind of wanted to try. So Sports Illustrated, something like Slam. This portrait was
Yeah.
something that, I was trying to push my creativity in that direction. And so, yeah, it kind of all started here where I was just testing out lighting, using models. Marcus is, by far one of my biggest fans and the person that gave me kind of the most people to like use as subjects. And so I thank him so very much for that. And here's one of the shots of him, and it's just a cool shot. Like at the time, it was cool, right? There was really no purpose. It was just how can I make this look good? So
It's so good. It's
yeah,
awesome. I mean, and we were talking a little bit about this on our dress rehearsal yesterday, but this does look like such a shot that you would get organically, but it also has this kind of chiaroscuro light play going on, and I really think that what I visually see is you bringing this kind of like cinematic effect to sports photography because you have shot so many different things. And I know we're going to get into all of the different, environments and kind of industries that you have shot that helped you develop that. But I really see that early on in your work.
thank you.
Yeah.
So the next phase in this journey, and this is a little bit next slide.
Oh,
You're good. So the next phase in this journey for me was photojournalism, and I moved to Houston, Texas. Um, Long story short, me and a friend just kind of said, yeah, why not go to Austin, Texas? It's kind of on a whim, kind of last minute, kind of I think we planned it like 5 days in advance. But we just kind of went with it. And I discovered, or I thought everything was bigger in Texas. Everything is bigger in Texas, yes.
yeah.
Uh, it's also hotter too. But so I discovered sports photography really at the time when I moved to Texas, and I got to shoot some Dynamo games. I got to shoot some concerts, which you'll see later in the slideshow. But it was really that spot to where I was able to get going, to get on my feet. First couple jobs as a photojournalist, I admit I was not a good photojournalist at the time. I love shooting photos, right? And you can see that talent. But as far as captioning, as far as writing, I sucked at. It wasn't perfect. Doesn't have to be perfect. But I was more about the art form. I was more about just shooting. Why am I captioning? Because in school, you are always learning about, well, how does this photo make you feel? And so
Mm,
that's what I was going off of at the time. I didn't know you had to caption things, to tell the viewers what was going on. I mean,
to bring
unless
a
it's blatantly,
package to it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Unless it's blatantly in front of you, you kind of know what's going on. But that was kind of where I discovered that skill.
Mm,
And then, the whole music thing just kind of took off because I shot one concert and I was like, oh wow, I can do this. And that led to shooting probably well over 250 concerts in my 2 years in Texas. It was kind of crazy. Like when I would have a full-time job, say working for the Facts or working for Houston Community Newspapers, which is now bought out by the Chronicle. I think the Courier is now the main paper that used to be a part of that network. Um, I'd love to go out and get the random breaking news scenes and the randomness of those things, but I love this stuff that you see on the screen, the music photography aspect of it. And so I just shot as much as I could because in reality, I wasn't happy with my jobs. It was kind of like you're chasing after something that you don't know at the time, and you're hoping that it works out. And so I was hoping that the music part would work out, which led to the next move to California, which is most of this stuff I think you see here. About half of it is from California, I believe. And there, I tried to push myself into that arena, and it wasn't necessarily the best field for me. Like I can be outgoing, but hanging out at clubs till 2 a.m. and whatnot, and shooting those things and not getting paid much money for it at the time, it just wasn't working.
right.
I kind of basically said, hey, you know, I had careers in photojournalism, but then I kind of wanted to direct my own path, which doesn't always work out, obviously. You know what I mean? Life kind of throws you curves, and that was a huge curveball. So,
I do
and
want to
going,
ask you, oh,
yes.
I do want to ask you one thing, because something that you're kind of talking about is, I don't know if that's an experience that everyone has. I think, some people, when they decide, and specifically non-Black folks, might have more of a support system around them, or a larger network to turn to, or even family contacts, in some regard to lean on, when you're shifting careers, or you're really trying to find your passion and like build up and a career and a name for yourself. And so I want to just ask a little bit about like your journey to following that passion as opposed to working in this corporate setting. Like what was it about the photojournalism, jobs that you had that maybe weren't as welcoming or as open, and there weren't as much there wasn't as much possibility and opportunity, I would say. But when you're also working on your own, you're having to do, find the money and chase paychecks down. So just maybe talk a little bit about uh, the paradox of that experience of maybe not having the support, but knowing that you deserve it, that's your path, and really building that for yourself.
I would say I think I've always had the support.
Mhm,
I grew up middle class,
mhm,
so majority of what we needed was provided. And so for me, I didn't grow up in a typical, kind of Black family. Both my parents worked jobs, um, good jobs, honestly, looking back at it. And so that kind of led the path for us, me and my sister, to kind of be able to find what we loved, even though at times it seemed like, well, you need to make money how is that going to make you money?
Right.
So that was a thing, for sure. And I think, with those jobs and feeling the pressure to work those jobs because you need to make money to survive, right? And
Mhm.
so that at the time for me, I would say from 2012 to 2015, I was really like struggling with, the voices in my head saying you need to make money, you need to stay focused, you need to, just kind of stay here for as long as you can
Yeah.
until that other thing happens.
Mhm.
And I think at the end of 2015, and leading into, the last step of photojournalism and then into higher ed, Amanda started thinking for Amanda and not
Yes.
about what anybody thought.
Mhm.
So necessary steps, absolutely. Do they come, right away when you're first starting your career? Not always. For
Mhm.
me, it came in the middle of my career, and so with that shift, you kind of got to just go for it and not worry about who you're gonna piss off. If you don't make the money right away, as long as you know in your heart that you're gonna be okay,
Mhm.
straight up, you got it. And so that's what I leaned on.
That's
If any.
awesome. Yeah, no, that's amazing. I think a lot of millennials, but I think, millennials of color, even if we do grow up with some kind of, financial support, there's always that thought process in your mind, like, am I not doing as much as I could? Or,
Yeah.
how am I excelling and how am I going to get ahead and also support myself? I just think it's a
Yeah.
worry. So I wanted to touch on that.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna progress in the slides. I'm gonna go to iFit. Or should we go back? Should we go back to
We
higher
should
ed?
go back to photojournalism actually, because so the California thing I left off at California. I decided that living in California and almost going bankrupt, not really a thing I really wanted to do. You kind of know what's right and what's wrong. And so while I know people work 3 and 4 jobs just to make it and live in Southern California, I was not ready for that at that point. So I did a reset and moved home. Not the thing I wanted to do, but the thing that I think eventually helped me the most. You go back home, you live at your parents' house for a little bit, you kind of get things flowing, and then at the same time started working on a passion project. If you can go to a slide before this,
Yes.
this was the passion project. This is East English Village boys basketball team back
Mhm.
in 2015-2016 season. At the time, childhood friend of mine, church friend of mine, Brendan Hunter, um, worked for a lot of newspapers and knew what was going on in the prep scene. And so I kind of wanted, even though I didn't have the ends, you know what I mean? I still wanted to work towards eventually shooting sports. And I thought this would be one of the ways to do it, to actually start to, you know, kind of work the passion, work the personal project, to
Mhm.
get my way back into photography.
Right.
So this was the one thing that I did. Unfortunately, I did not finish the season with them as I accepted a job with the York Dispatch in 2016 as a designer / photographer,
Mhm.
and but I enjoyed it. Like this was the start to really get the photo telling side of my work started, really. So, next slide.
And also understanding how a team works, like really being integral into the moments where they're not just playing the game or you're not just shooting the action, you're, you know, processing how they're developing over the course of a season. So
Oh, yeah, I
even though
mean,
you
at the time, I was, I always talked about, oh, it's action, action, action. But what I really became noticeable of is the in between moments, which I would
Mhm.
say now are some of the best things that I shoot because I love
Right.
it. It just shooting candid, shooting in the moment is just, it's awesome to me. So back to that New York Dispatch job. It was everything that you can imagine. Election stuff, high school sports, collegiate sports, breaking news, That part of Pennsylvania was very conservative as well. And so that, I had to go through a lot of like understanding where I fit, as a Black woman. I don't think before this time about it as, okay, I'm a Black woman, I have to conduct myself a certain way. I wasn't thinking about that until this point, because I was out working for media, and you would hear some just random comments, and I would just sit here and be like, okay, like I'm here covering for somebody, and so, and that's just what you have to go through as a journalist. You know what I mean? You kind of have to turn everything off and just cover the event how you see it. And so that is one of the things I learned then. And I am just so grateful for that opportunity, because that's where kind of my writing started as well. Not that I was ever wanting to write. I was kind of like forced to write, actually. It was like oh, you can do an article with the pictures and then do a little video piece. And then I was like, okay. Yeah.
Right.
So you kind of have to learn as you go. And so this is one of the spots that I was just like, okay, maybe I can write, maybe I can do a little video, maybe I can do all these things that maybe before I was just like, how do I get started into doing all that? This job kind of pushed that envelope. And so I'm very thankful to the folks at the York Dispatch. Those were some good times, some frustrating times, but the job really, served its purpose for the time frame that I was there. So yeah.
Right. And so, as you continued, throughout your career, and you went through higher education, you also did some production work with iFit, and then you found yourself in the Sharks. I know that we want to discuss a little bit how, higher education primed you or prepped you per se,
Mhm.
to understand what you really were looking for within your career and what you weren't. So could you talk a little bit?
So yeah, I mean, higher education, to everybody out there, I think you apply to uh, hundreds of jobs, and sometimes you don't even know what you're about to get yourself into. And when I applied for EKU, I read the description. I was like, yeah, I can do that. Not a big deal. It's just like applying for anything else. In your head, you're like, yeah, you're not going to choose me, whatever. Um, but that was not the case. Um, I applied for the job and I got the job, and it was like my first glimpse of, hey, now I get to manage students, and now I get to kind of be the sole university photographer, as well as the first woman and probably even the first Black person. I don't know how that went. Told that. So at the time, like I wasn't really thinking about, oh, okay, yeah, I'm the first this. You just don't think about it that way, especially, in the moment when you're transitioning. You're just trying to be the best you can be. And so that job, professionally was the best thing ever, because I learned so much, had to grow a lot. And, to manage students, holy crap.
Yeah.
If anybody knows about working with students, the amount of excuses you get with working with students, you're just like, are you serious? Was I really this bad as a college student? I don't remember this. But
Right.
it was a good experience for me to kind of help them along in their journey, which also helped me as well. And so, higher ed, most people are like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do that. It's so much. Like you working from um, some parts of athletics, you have most campus departments, you have student life, so there's everything. There's portraiture, there's actual events, there's some architectural shots, there's class shots, there's just random moments, there's portraits,
Right.
and that's really where I developed the current style that I have, was for working for EKU. And I'm very thankful for Christy and Doug for just trusting me, for the job, because there are some people that I'm just like, really? Are you sure you want to hire?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
they
and they were
do.
like, and here's the thing about it. I think that was also the first time that I submitted or I gave them a booklet of my former or my prior work. And I
Mm,
kind of said, here's what you can have,
mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm.
know, as far as what this photographer can offer for your university. And
Right.
Doug loved it. The Cornet, amazing man, you know. So that was
Exactly.
higher ed. Um,
Yeah, the multitudes though that, you were able to show in all of your work and the varying degrees of industries and areas and people and, everything that you were able to show with your work, I really feel like higher ed was a natural way for you to also continue to grow and expand because of all of the different types of assignments that are available.
yeah,
Um,
just so people can understand you probably see Purdue on the list as well.
mhm,
Um, so what EKU provided was what I thought was the start.
mhm,
When you're the sole person of anything,
mhm.
it can get old. It can get old very fast.
Right.
And sometimes you're like, okay, I just need a break. And
Mhm.
sometimes those breaks aren't there. And so what I was looking for is that next kind of up to where I was on a team of folks instead of
Right.
it just being me. So that was where I kind of decided, okay, I need to start applying to other universities and seeing where this can go. And so Purdue happened, so did COVID. And a lot of other things happened with that. But yeah, that's just a brief explanation of that transition. Because
Yeah.
and also I will say the grass is not always greener on the other side. And someone told me that, or someone asked me that question, or basically told me that statement before leaving EKU, and I said, mm, I think it could be.
Hmm.
Yeah. So sometimes you need to listen to those folks. But if it wasn't for the Purdue move, I don't think I would be here
Right.
with the
Sometimes you just need
so
a stepping
yeah,
stone of
yeah,
sorts,
exactly.
and that's okay. And that's okay. Uh, if it doesn't leave too many scars, that's really that's also a reality too of being the first and only and a Black woman in media is that while it is an opportunity and it's a challenge and you have to be thankful all the time, it's an enormous amount of pressure. And I have been reading or have seen on LinkedIn these conversations around, instead of the glass ceiling, there's this concept of a glass cliff. So
Yep,
being hired into a position where you can't possibly be everything to the entire company, and save
yep,
issues that are years past long. Like in what you're bringing to the creative team at the Sharks, I'm sure that they're not looking for you to solve all of their issues, but to help them optimize and grow. And that's exactly, what you are doing. And I can't wait to hear how and what exactly you like about what they're doing and how you are helping challenge that with all of your past prior experiences. But let's talk about iFit really quick because these photos are gorgeous and the in studio setting of filming athleticism in a studio setting while it's also live, but you're also producing, for a shot list. I think that this is a very key area in your career that kind of bridged the gap from this portraiture, live events, cinematic, gorgeous style, and then translating it to maybe just specifically the art world and athletes too. Um,
yeah. I mean, the iFit experience, like with anything else, it was something that I found, and I was like, okay, so what is this? And so once I got a reply back from them, and they were interested. It's a completely new thing for them to have started live classes back in I think October of 2020, and so they were expanding their department, and so here I was the first full timer um, live on set doing photography on set for live classes.
mhm,
And like I said, didn't know what I was getting myself into, but repetition, consistency
mhm.
were everything. You know what I mean? Like there are lots of reps. You could go from shooting 500 shots per class, at times, to like editing that down to maybe 3 to 5.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Wow.
it has to be a very tight edit, because a lot of the shots look very similar. So
And
you
oh, I'm so sorry.
go ahead.
Oh, so at this job, I guess my question is, were you shooting for like the organization iFit, or were you shooting also and producing and sending images to these like influencer teachers too? So, producing and editing for the organization and the comms, but also for like these internal influencer talent types?
So at the time, I was just shooting and partly editing. I worked with another guy named Dustin Master, who is awesome guy, East Coaster as well. But we really kind of hit it off as far as like merging our styles together and having conversations, because you forget, when you're kind of doing this job like 5 days a week, the same thing, it kind of gets mundane and boring.
Mhm.
So it was great to have conversation with Dustin at the time. And so, it was a lot of, I guess, fighting for what we thought creatively or
Mm,
creatively would work. There was a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
mhm,
And so you had to kind of please them. Sometimes the influence didn't get their shots, you know what I mean? And they would come to me. And unfortunately, there were so many um, things that we have to sign, confidentiality
mhm.
kind of things, and we can't send. And, that's why the iFit stuff I really couldn't post when I worked for iFit,
I see.
because it was really, they kind of wanted to keep it tight knit. So, I would say while I love these shots, like creatively, I just wish we could have done more.
Right.
Uh, and eventually it got to a point for me was that there was no evolution in the job.
Mm,
You can do anything for 5 days and for 7 hours, you know what I mean? But I wasn't gonna grow more unless I had a higher end kind of position title. You know what I mean? Being a live set photographer, just it wasn't going to last.
yeah.
And so when I realized that, um, I really started to think, how could I get into sports?
Mm,
Is this the path? Because I would sit there and talk to the talent, and they'd be like, "Oh, so what do you want to do?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to be a team photographer." And they're like, "Oh, that shouldn't be hard."
mm. Right.
I
Right.
was like, it shouldn't be hard. But I've been at this for about 10 years now. And it's a little hard, because with sports photography in general, like it's kind of like you got to be an intern to work your way into a company, and then they'll trust you with, the actual team photographer or the assistant photographer or whatever the position that you're going out for. And so I got lucky. Uh, the Sharks, being the team, the person in particular that was the forefront of hiring me,
Mhm.
really just liked what I did. And quite frankly, yes, I did nail the interview, because she basically, I met with her last month, and she said, "Yeah, but you nailed the interview." I said, "Yeah, but you're a part of that." You know what I mean? Whitney Halleck, who is the director of marketing for DC United. Um, and I'm very happy for her and her move back or over to DC. But wish I could have worked with her a little bit longer. But it's okay. You know what I mean? I'm here, and it's a journey. And so to get here, one of the things that, and I'll go into your question, that I
Mhm.
loved about the Sharks originally, why I applied for the job, was their kind of mission statement about including diversity and inclusion and all these things. You know,
Mm,
everybody puts it on their website, right? We know it at this point in time. But do they really preach it? Are they really looking to be inclusive? Are they really looking to diversify not only the creative side, but their department? You
right.
know,
Right.
are they actually going to take into account of the things that you have to say? albeit whether it be with a different tone because you come from a different background. Um,
Correct.
and so that's one of the things that drew me to the job, was just that, and it was all three interviews were awesome.
Yeah.
So, and so far here, things have been good. You know what I mean? We're kind of not playing very well right now, but that can change, and I hope it does change. On the screen, you have a goaltender, Aiden Hill, to your left,
Mhm.
and then of course Bernsey to your right. Everybody knows who Bernsey is. Everybody who's followed my Instagram account knows about his truck. Um, and on this, so I literally did a media day, my third day on this job.
Wow. Wow.
So lighting wasn't the best. Kind of rushed, kind of didn't know what I had until like it showed
Mm.
up, and I'm like, I don't think I've ever worked with this, but okay, we're gonna do this. So it was like, okay, let's just do what you can. Let's not necessarily knock it out the park because this is only your third day, you know.
Right.
So I love this photo. Very stoic.
They're
Um,
both gorgeous. The left one looks like it could be a cross between uh Porsche and Hermès advertisement or something, Porsche
the,
and Hermès.
what
Like,
I will say about the goaltenders is that they know how to dress. That's
yes.
what I will say. That especially on this team, they do know how to dress. And every now and then, like you'll see Bernsey, in his plaid suits and whatnot. And so these guys, they're great, and I love both of these images. And I was just glad that had the chance to shoot them and got the moment.
Yeah,
That's
and
that.
you're bringing the portraiture back. Or I know portraiture is so important to sports photography, but these, I don't know, there's something about their facial expressions that I feel like you understand who they are as people, and they don't look too stoic. Like he looks like a human man who's actually walking and doing, who has a purpose, who's not like, I just look cool with my watch and I'm, looking down for a Tinder
Yeah,
photo or something.
yeah.
They look purposeful, and the facial expressions are very strong.
Awesome.
Uh, yeah. And
Um,
so in the locker room?
Locker room shot. So if anybody was around or anybody saw it on TV, we played a game against the Kings on MLK Day, and sometimes there's just these weird games that just happen out of nowhere because you can tell me someone can score 5 goals in 2 periods. What? Timo scored 5 goals in 2 periods, and they were gunning for him to score double hat trick, and the third period didn't happen, but it's a record for the Sharks. So got to take this portrait or in the locker room post game. It is also a poster in our pro shop.
Awesome.
Um, and I think it's the other one with the one hand of holding the pucks is a trading card right now. It's yeah, the things people would put photos on. It's history,
Yeah.
yes, I understand, but it's kind of like as someone that collected trading cards and baseball cards and all that stuff when I was younger, it's kind of like wow, that's pretty impressive.
Here's an interesting random question now that you've said that. Do you remember any of the photographers that took those photos on the trading cards you had as a kid?
No,
Just
I was
because,
not thinking about that. That's
yeah.
that's the thing about it. I mean, I had, Babe Ruth was a card that I used to have. Besides sports, Magic, I could Pokemon. Like most people are like, huh? Yeah, I was tomboy. Probably still am a tomboy to a point, but it was awesome. That's just what I loved.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of cool to see that coming full circle, I guess.
So
Um,
cool. So
yeah.
cool. I
So.
love that. I think that's awesome. And so, now that we've all seen a lot of your work, we've seen how your career has progressed, how your attention to detail, light play, movement, really has created this really unique style. And I know that we also have talked a lot about being heard, making sure that you are heard in rooms where no one looks like you. And so I want to just talk a little bit about your experience the past 6 months with the Sharks team, and being the NHL's first Black female team photographer. What is it like in a male dominated industry, one being film, and two being sports, and specifically hockey, which is I think one of the like least diverse sports. I was listening to a Twitter Spaces conversation that you were a part of yesterday that you sent me, with Akeem Aliou, also an NHL athlete, and he mentioned, I think that the league is 93% white, I
Yeah,
want to
there are
say, or
numbers
just like,
floating around 97, 95, 93. I don't know exactly what. I think I put 97% in the blog post.
right.
But you know, I usually come in these spaces knowing what I'm walking into, and so this one I did.
Mhm.
Um, but the hard part about it is every now and then you get reminded not to show your feelings or not to feel something, right? Because it gives off vulnerability. Um, I think that the one thing that I've learned is that it is okay to feel like, holy crap, I'm the only Black person on this plane. What
Mhm.
is going on?
Mhm.
You can't discredit those feelings. So you got to feel them. I'm a person that's been in therapy for, God, almost 5 years now. And a lot of that, like 4 years ago, was not a thing. Like I was gonna act like the toughest person ever,
Mhm.
um, and not think anything of it, or try to act like the toughest person ever. But now I think because I am passionate about certain things, like you'll see that vulnerability side of me, or you'll see that side that will speak up for others who have good ideals. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Just because um, a season may not be going the way it should does not mean you should ever stop working hard. And that is one thing that I will, hold to or stand by, is that I will always work hard. These guys work hard on the ice, even though the results may not be there. They're
Right.
still giving it their best.
Right.
I'm not an ice hockey player. I don't know what it feels like to go out there for 3 periods and skate around. But at times, yes, watching it does look frustrating when you're not getting the goals and whatnot, and not getting the calls from the refs. But on the other side of it, I still have to show that. And so a lot of it of what the last post on Instagram, you saw the frustration. That's kind of the mood right now.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you got to continue to tell the story as it is evolving. And so
It.
that is the one thing that I will do, will try to do, and will continue to do it here, regardless of whether I'm heard or not.
Yes. Yes, Amanda. I love, honestly, that parallel is really important, I think. There's a lot, I'm not an athlete myself, but there's a lot about perseverance and about team camaraderie and having kind of an allegiance to a team and doing your
Yep.
work even, when your energy isn't there. And I think both as a Black person, as an athlete, I think that's a parallel that makes a lot of sense. We have a ton of comments and a ton of questions coming in. So I want to, as I open the discussion up a bit for
Okay.
others, and to answer their questions, I'll start with my question, which was, when you got to the Sharks, I know that you have had a familiarity with, our PhotoShelter platform, but in terms of visually, what was like working for you and what wasn't working for you? And what, as you mentioned,
Yep.
everything's still a work in progress. What are you focused on optimizing or helping the Sharks lean into more or express more by telling this story? And also,
Um,
everyone, this is Amanda behind the panels photographing. And this.
Extreme Sharky. Ever so grateful for Nat, who works for the Mercury News here in the San Jose area. he sent me that, and I was like, oh wow, I'm very hard to capture when I'm behind the camera. As
Mm.
I mean, I thought I was, but some people have done a good job. That's all I'll say to that. But one of the things that I liked, the teal color, it's just such a beautiful color, and so I was like, man, to enhance that, to make that beautiful, would be awesome. Anytime I come to a job, I don't necessarily look at it as, what the last photographer did, because I don't ever want to discredit, their work.
Hmm.
Brandon, who is now the photo manager for Atlanta,
Hmm.
is a great guy. I had the chance to talk to him before the job, and he just kind of told me what's up. It's a grind. It is a grind. I will say that. But also with any other job that I come to, I'm gonna bring the artsy side of it,
Yes.
because I like bringing. I don't ever want to look at something like how someone else looks at it. I
Right.
think one thing in the interview that I said was like, if everybody's standing on the left side of the stage for a concert, for instance,
Hmm.
I want to be on the opposite side,
Yes.
um, because I don't want to get the same shot. And I know there are great hockey photographers. Bruce Bennett, who's like the hockey god, you know, has definitely made it hard to like get the best hockey shots for sure. But I'm bringing my creativity to it, and I'm doing the best I can. I would say most people would probably find it funny that I think the on ice stuff is probably the weakest for me,
Hmm.
because it's a very fast sport to shoot. You're
Right.
gonna miss some things, and so it's there are some games where I'm just like, oh, this sucks. Oh, this sucks. Looking back at it, I'm like, no, you didn't suck that bad. You know what I mean? Like, you can only do what you can do. What I also bring is the portraiture aspect of it, the
Mm.
candidates, the in the locker room, the pre warm ups, all of it, the arrival shots that you saw in the last slide or in the 2-4.
Hmm.
I would never call myself a red carpet photographer. I used to
Right.
hate that term 8 years ago. I used to be like, yeah, I don't shoot that. I'm not paparazzi, you know.
Right.
But this job has made it, I guess, easier. You get a certain access that most people don't get, and you're allowed to stage the photo how you want to, you
Right.
know. So that's what makes it unique, a unique talent for myself that I love.
Right.
So it's just creating those different moments. Like I figure the on ice stuff will come over time and with repetition and consistency, and that's really for any other sport too. Another hard sport to shoot is volleyball. People out
Yeah.
there know, you gotta just keep shooting it, and over time, you'll kind of develop um, into a better shooter. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do at this point.
Yeah, and I think it's working. I was going to say you posted a series of a photo dump from this past week, I think on your
Yep.
Instagram or on Twitter. And there was a really awesome photo of the two sticks hitting the puck like right at that moment where the ice was all, it was very, very moody. I loved it. So
Thanks.
okay, I am going to, as I'm sending you or answering as I tell you some questions that the audience has for you that they would love for you to answer, I'm also going to show a bit of what your behind the PhotoShelter content library looks like to everybody
Right.
listening.
Yep.
So a question from Jeff is, what are your biggest challenges that you faced when shooting NHL games compared to the other type of content you've covered in your career prior?
You are shooting through a photo hole, and it is very challenging because I'll tell you what, people are always at the end of the season, we're like, oh, can the puck really go through the hole? When I was in Seattle, it went through the hole, and I
Oh,
got like, yeah, it happens. It wasn't a hard hit. It kind of the mask kind of got most of it, but yeah, because sometimes a millisecond, you know what I mean? You take your eye for play and you're like into the moment and you're shooting it, and then next thing you know, there's a puck.
that's really crazy, actually. And That
So
I actually can't imagine that. And now that I'm looking at that tiny hole,
yeah.
I really can't imagine that there's enough space, but that sounds
Oh yeah.
wild.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
So yeah, I would say that's the most challenging part of it. I would say the other challenging part of it is, even though I do work for the team, sometimes, especially with COVID, the access is there's some restrictions to it. So working around that has been a challenging feat for sure. So
What about your favorite go-to lens for an assignment?
currently, right now, we do not have any prime lenses. And
Ah,
if we had any prime lenses, I would say a 35 or 50 1.4 would be my go-to. And even for shooting something like hockey, like I love to challenge myself, whether that is, oh, I'm going to use a wide lens for the whole night just to see what I can create. Like I'm that person that will just randomly just use one lens and that's about it, like the more lenses I have, sometimes it's just too much, like I'm not on the sidelines, so you can be kind of particular about what you use. And so, primes, I love primes and I wish I had some primes here, but I do not. But, we make do with what we have. So, yeah.
whoever's listening, if you're on the Sharks team, find the budget. Just kidding. But uh, somebody else is wondering if you all are using Roster IQ, our metadata tagging AI, so it's quick and easy for you, and you don't have to spend that extra time with the captioning and all.
Yes, absolutely. The roster IQ / facial recognition has been awesome. We partnership with Greenfly, so that once you tag Greenfly in the metadata template, it gets sent to the players so that they can post on their social channels and whatnot. So yes, it is very key.
That's awesome, and I know that those platforms and the ways that we integrate just make everything like so much faster. Especially, and I guess this is a good stat to know now. So you were mentioning that in the iFit days, you sometimes shot. I forget the number that you said, but it sounded like thousands, and then you only brought it, or 500, and then you brought it to about 3 to 5. Like,
Yep.
what would you say is an average for a game that you are shooting? And then how many do you, heavy edit and like do a final selects, I
So
guess?
if you want to head to that portion of the
Yes.
slides, it's kind of very similar to other teams that you've had here. It's I roughly shoot. It depends. If I'm using strobes, I shoot a lot less. Next slide.
Hmm.
Next slide. Go back. Go back. So no, yeah.
Here we are.
Um, so what you're seeing on the screen is just a sample of what our, PhotoShelter looks like. So there are two things. There's game day edits and there's post game edits. And why that is because game day edits, yes, as a photographer, you try to do everything you can on the night of just to get things done. So in that little section there are probably 100 some images um, from the night, from the day.
Wow.
Afterwards, I like to go through just to make sure that, okay, whether anything that I want to pick up, that I want to crop tighter, that I want to, to take a unique spin on. Those are the post game edits. A little bit fancier, maybe can be used more from a marketing standpoint, uh,
Mm.
for a flyer or whatnot. But that's just the way we kind of do it here. I have currently right now we just hired another part-timer, Meredith Williams, and
Awesome.
then a part-timer who's been here for 3 years, Kaveen Mystery, who's awesome. And so, he kind of edits for us on most nights and takes care of that and the Getty situation and the captioning. If you can go back to the workflow slide so I can show. How we capture here for now, it is a temporary thing until we figure out what camera systems we're gonna, either switch off to or upgrade to. We are captioning. The Ethernet cord is connected to the side of the camera. Therefore, it is sending all the photos JPEG wise to the computer, which is in our office area. From there, Kaveen captions, crops, and color corrects. Um, at the time, usually I like to say PhotoShelter is first, just for our social purposes, that so
Mm,
that they get out things. Say if there is a first goal scored, then they have those photos. They also have photos that the NHL live social coordinator that's here that also sends them, so they can use either or.
mm,
We're just putting in photos that we have that from what has happened in the game so far.
right.
The Getty side of it is that the NHL requires you to upload 25 images to Getty, at least 25 images to Getty. I would say we kind of average 35 to 50
Oh,
night. So yeah, that's the other side of that. And then, whatever social wants to share, whether that's Instagram, Twitter, or the other channels that we have, they can do that. Sometimes, if I see something, at the VOM door, like there's a player's family, we'll let them know, hey, we got a shot of so and so's wife and kids. I think you guys saw that on Twitter that the Sharks posted. Reimer's wife and kids were at the door. And then I think Kaveen got a goalie Reimer shot, and kind of they kind of merged the two photos and whatnot. And so yeah, so I mean, just unique stuff like that. Um,
right. Like the collaging.
Not right. I mean, so if you look at it from a Twitter standpoint, like you see the portrait of Reimer and then the other photo of his family, his wife and kids, just kind of looking like it was kind of sweet how they put it together, I must say.
Mm,
So
mm.
yeah, shouts to Kaylee and Laurel for doing that. So
That's so awesome. I know that we're connected with them on email, so that's fantastic. And I can't wait to, yeah, learn more about how your assets, live on and get repurposed after the fact too.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. And so, okay, so here's another question. Having been, and I know that we're wrapping up, so if anyone has any more questions, Amanda may be available for a short period of time later on today, or later on this week, in Slack. So if you have any additional questions that she was unable to get to during this Q&A session, you can at her in the live chat channel and ask your question. And I think this is a pretty good one to end on, because I do want to talk a little bit more about your blog and how you kind of separate or blend, your work as a photographer and your personal work as also a writer and photographer and photojournalist, and how you kind of separate that from the Sharks work. So this question comes from Taylor. Having been a writer and a photojournalist, did your experience as a writer change how you viewed shooting assignments?
No, because I think at the time that I was kind of in that space, the writing was more around whatever the topic is or the photos themselves. I
Mm,
think now for me, it's more from a personal space. It's
right.
more telling my story. And so, like for instance, I think if I get around to doing a player profile, you'll get to see a little bit of me intertwining their words, kind of into my work in my life.
Mm,
Because I think so many of us are very similar, and we don't realize it.
right.
Color, race has nothing to do with it sometimes. And, that's just the story that I want to tell, is that someone could be a hockey player, but very similar to, the things that I went through or did, how I grew up, and so, no, I don't, I forgot the question now, but um, I would say for when I was in photojournalism, it was completely different. Like
Mhm.
those days were like I did the bare minimum, to get the story across. And now because I do have a platform, and there have been a couple times where, because I've always wanted to do a blog.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to kind of get my story out. I didn't know. when the right time was. Also, I am uh, LGBTQ as well.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. And so until you feel comfortable with things, I think, as Candace Farkas said, no one can still tell your story, you know, only you can tell your story. And so now that I have this platform and that I'm comfortable with it, this is me telling my story. And so, yeah.
And I know so many other people who might even be afraid or even don't know that they like have a story. I think it's really important to hear and have representation of all kinds, but also to acknowledge that we all are similar to some degree. We all just need to actually talk and communicate and be honest and vulnerable with one another. So I really, really, really appreciate you just sharing all of this with us today. I think, like you were saying at the beginning of this conversation, people sometimes don't think about the team that actually creates the fan base and the team that you're seeing perform on TV.
Yeah.
And you're packaging a story of incredible athletes, but you're also building a brand, and not just for yourself, but for a team that you now are joined to. So
Yeah.
we can't wait to see how that evolves. We also can't wait to see how just you evolve. And I really appreciate you sharing this advice to, younger creatives as well, because I think it's really important to be comfortable with yourself, but also to put yourself in a position where you can be heard and have your story told too. So thank you so much for all of that. And I have if there's one thing that
Yeah.
you could, yeah, if there's one thing that you could share or say to um, younger Amanda who might not have known that you would be in this position right now, what's one thing that you could say to yourself?
Huh. Um, or younger Amanda was very shy. So I would say to younger Amanda, it's okay to share your opinion
Mhm,
because your opinion matters.
mhm,
You know what I mean? So much of like my childhood was just kind of standing back and watching people kind of, take the lead or be boisterous and I mean, maybe it was because I was raised, you know what I mean, very clingy to my parents, my mom, and so, I was never the one that was loud at all, until I hit that college age. And somewhere, somehow, I think that freedom kind of evolved. And luckily it evolved over time into the person that I am today, which is very passionate. So I would say to younger Amanda, um, opinions matter and passion matter, and it's okay to be vulnerable. So yeah.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. And that's exactly the words that I needed to hear. I'm going to be 33 tomorrow. It's my
Oh, wow.
Jesus year. So, as they say, as you get older, all this clarity comes. And this is exactly the advice that I really needed to hear. Not be fearful, to know that I can take the lead, to know that I matter, that my opinions matter. And we do have a place. We don't ever have to figure it out. Our place is here.
No, no. And I'll also say this for every parent out there too. Let your kids be who they're going to be. Um, you know, so many times, we kind of do. I'm not a parent. So many times, many parents try to direct their kids' path or try to make them say, "Oh, you're going to play this or you're going to do this." At a certain point, your kids will figure it out, albeit maybe they haven't figured it out yet.
Mhm.
Like if they hear that one podcast, they hear that one person talking inspirational about something that they just figured out, like, oh my goodness, why can't I do this?
Mhm.
It'll happen. You know, the days of forcing, I guess, college kids or high schoolers to do something, it's over. You know what I mean? College students now, like, I'm just like, wow, I never knew all that much when I was in school.
Right.
There's so much more going on in the world nowadays that, you kind of have to know how to navigate it at that age.
Right. Right.
So, your kids will eventually figure it out, as long as, they hear that one. It only takes one person,
Right.
in all the jobs that I've had. I've been lucky to have a work mother, even though, like, I was not looking for one, but there's always been that one person. And so every job that I've had, thank you so very much for just looking out for me. And so, yeah.
And thank you for looking out for us for, sharing this, because that really is care.
Yeah.
It's passing it on is really, that's the caretaker work. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
taking care of us, for sharing your wisdom and passing it on. We will continue to lift you up and to continue to share this story. And yeah, I really, really can't wait to see how you evolve over the next 6 months with the Sharks. I'm excited. And even though we're down on our luck, don't worry. We got all the PhotoShelter crossing our limbs and everything.